Antifa. You're all mad at me already. You haven't even watched the video and you're already mad, aren't you? Admit it. On March 5th, 2018, conservative pundit and all-around douchebag Carl Benjamin, known to the internet by his incredibly self-aggrandizing nom de plume, Sargon of Akkad, was speaking on a panel about the philosophy of objectivism as the guest of the King's Cross Libertarian Society. The event was protested by a group of anti-fascist activists who stormed into the room, unfurled a flag, threw some smoke bombs, and then got their asses kicked pretty bad. Also that day, hundreds of anti-fascist activists protested a speech by white nationalist punching bag Richard Spencer at Michigan State University. 100 or so cops in full riot gear were on hand to fight people who had cardboard signs throwing rocks, and they arrested 24 protesters. Nevertheless, the protest sealed off the venue, and Spencer was forced to give his speech to an audience of about 24 people, while the rest of his fans turned tail and ran away, like little baby cowards. The master race, ladies and germs. Shortly thereafter, Spencer was forced to concede that Antifa is winning.
You know, I really hate to say this, and I definitely hesitate to say this, but Antifa is winning to the extent that they are willing to go further than anyone else.
So, we have two Antifa protests on the same day, one which failed and one which succeeded brilliantly. On the day of, however, only one of them was plastered all over my Twitter feed. The Sargon protest was all anyone wanted to talk about, and everyone was eager to condemn it both morally and tactically. Oh, what a setback for the anti-fascist movement. Don't they see how bad this makes them look? We need to win people over to our side, and things like this are only going to make people sympathize with the fascists. Besides, Carl isn't even a real fascist. He's just a misguided liberal. Letting him speak won't hurt anyone. Think about the optics. Think about the optics. Why won't anyone think about the optics? Now, I'm no PR expert. I named my channel Thought Slime and didn't think to check, hey, is slime super popular right now? Is that gonna mess up my SEO? But it seems to me like if you're really worried about optics, you might want to try to control the story. For example, don't just say, I wholeheartedly condemn the actions of these protesters. Sargon of Egads is not a fascist, and this will only bring attention to him and his cause. Say instead, while I wholeheartedly condemn the methods of these protesters and their choice of target, it's important that we remain committed to stopping fascists from recruiting and organizing wherever they try to do so. You'll notice that these two statements are saying more or less the same thing. One enforces the idea that people who do Antifa stuff are mindless punchlords going around and smashing shit for no reason. The other manages to condemn the specific people involved and their actions, while still keeping the focus on the fact that we have to do something about all the dang Nazis everywhere. And just for the record, I think Carly Rae Benson is a perfectly valid target for anti-fascist demonstration. I'm not saying the dude ought to get punched, but he definitely needs to be protested anywhere he goes to spread his Dumbo views. There's a reason fascists refer to him as a good entry point for normal people. And while he himself may not be a full-blown fash, he's certainly sympathetic to them and helps them recruit.
The worst case scenario for the alt-right success in this endeavour is less intolerable to me and my family than the SJW success. And so from a tactical evaluation, I have to choose this angle. I have to try and explain to the alt-right that they can get what they want and they should take this gambit.
Well,
even if it means the end of liberal democracy.
You don't have to agree. I understand if you don't. I'm not saying you have to agree with every or any Antifa activity, and I'm not saying you shouldn't criticize the left or Antifa in particular. Criticism is good. Criticize everything. Criticize me, for God's sake. Good luck, though. I'm perfect. I'm saying that when you do criticize, you have to do it thoughtfully. Make sure that your criticism doesn't inadvertently enforce right-wing talking points. Don't give ammunition to our enemies or help them make their case. Use your criticism to platform your own views rather than theirs. And in any discussion of fascists, make sure that the conversation stays focused on the fact that fascists need to be stopped. There's this sort of lazy fatalism in the way that we on the left look at public perception. Once something has happened, we just kind of give up on how it's seen. The right-wing reaction machine will beat us at controlling the message anyway, so why bother even trying? It's made us obsessed with how things look, how they'll make us look, whether or not our actions are popular, and how to avoid controversy. And since things are controversial merely for being leftist in nature, it's a vicious cycle, and the right is more than happy to exploit this. They revel in controversy, in unpopularity, in playing the heel. They don't measure their words, they speak from the gut, and even though what they're saying is usually dumb trash, people respond to it because it's spoken with confidence and certainty. They stick to the script and refuse to deviate from their talking points no matter how absurd it looks. How many times have you heard Dinesh D'Souza claim that the Nazis were socialist because their name is short for National Socialist? Even though it must have been pointed out to him hundreds of times how wrong that is, how the term privatization was coined to describe Nazi policy, how Nazis imprisoned and murdered socialists. But none of that matters to Dinesh. All that matters to him is repeating a simple lie over and over, while the truth remains comparatively difficult to argue.
So I want to focus very briefly on lessons that Hitler learned from the Democratic Party. And I am not kidding.
And I think there's something we can learn from the right on this. Now, to be clear, I don't think we should lie or hide facts that are inconvenient for our narrative. That's not only morally wrong and unnecessary when you have the truth on your side, but also tactically unwise. Firstly, because it opens up easy avenues of attack for our enemies, and also because people really don't like being lied to or people that lie to them. Once they figure out you tried to manipulate them, they aren't likely to listen to the rest of your ideas. But I do think we should have talking points. Short, simple, easy to understand sound bites that we can fall back on when the conversation is not going our way. Things that are difficult to take out of context, difficult to dispute, and the average person will agree with, even if they haven't read your favorite old dead white dude. We have some of those already. Good examples include, there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. If people can't be trusted with liberty, they can't be trusted with authority. If someone has $1 they didn't earn, someone else worked for $1 they didn't get. We need more. We need to be really good at communicating our goals and intentions, because a lot of things we need to do are going to be extremely unpopular outside of leftist circles. So we have three options here. 1, we never do anything and earn the reputation for being all talk, no action. 2, we do what needs to be done and accept that we're forever unpopular. Or 3, and this is the option I personally would prefer, we stand by our convictions and make the case for why our actions are necessary. We don't shrink away from scrutiny or speak in wishy-washy hypotheticals, but rather in clear, concise, normal people talk. After all, we understand our beliefs. I think it's arrogant to assume that the general public wouldn't understand them if we made the effort to communicate more clearly. And sometimes that will not work. Sometimes our actions will still be unpopular, and that's a risk we have to be willing to take, because some things are important enough that it doesn't matter if people agree with us or not. And so, we return to Antifa. Now, I don't know if you've noticed this, but Antifa is pretty unpopular.
By most accounts, almost all of the people protesting against the hateful bigots, the Nazis and Klansmen in Charlottesville, were peaceful, but not all of them. In their midst was a sometimes very violent group of protesters that call themselves Antifa, known to not only clash with bigots, but also sometimes with police and occasionally storefronts.
It doesn't matter what your noble goal may be. It doesn't matter what you say you're fighting for. When people see that, all they think is, oh, it's vegan ISIS.
Well, America is plagued by the specter of fascist violence, and in an ironic twist, these fascists call themselves anti-fascist, Antifa.
Maybe it's just me. It's important that we get people on board with anti-fascist organizing, don't get me wrong. But it is not the most important aspect of anti-fascist organizing by any stretch. The really important part is stopping Nazis from murdering people, and that will always take priority over concerns about likability. The goal is to stop fascists, not to build Antifa as a larger brand. Antifa is not a type of soda. It doesn't need market share to survive. People being harassed by fascists don't have time to sit around and wait for us to convince the general public to get on board with shutting that shit down. Like, say, if a bunch of Nazis are circling your synagogue and the police refuse to help, you might want to step in, even if people think it's a bad idea. Should Antifa have not shown up on the night of the Unite the Right rally? I'd wager that if you put it to a vote ahead of time, public opinion would have been against it. Good thing they did though, because they protected a lot of people who were being targeted by fascists. Whether or not people get to feel safe on the streets should not be left to the whims of public opinion. There was a time, not that long ago, when public opinion was pretty mixed on whether slavery was okay. It is moral to defend vulnerable people, whether or not the public at large wants you to. Everyone has a right to feel safe in their community, and a right to defend themselves. And if someone is threatening you or hurting you, they have to be stopped. Oh, but KC, aren't you making Nazis feel unsafe in the streets? Well, dog, thanks for the extremely good faith question. Nazis actually waived their right to feel safe when they started threatening people. People and communities have the right to defend themselves. Full stop. And make no mistake, fascists are not just threatening people, they're murdering people. They're recruiting, they're organizing, they're infiltrating law enforcement and political parties with the expressed aim of forcing people out of their homes and murdering them. The only thing that seems to be effective at holding these monsters at bay right now is committed and diligent anti-fascist agitating. Now, maybe you don't like the way that Antifa behaves, and maybe you don't like their tactics. I don't always either. I don't understand why we gotta break so many fucking windows. It's fun to break windows. I would personally break every window on the planet if I could. Hashtag kill all windows. That's perfectly okay. That's your prerogative. But that makes it incumbent on you to fight fascism with your methods. It means you have to show everyone your better way. And if that doesn't work, don't be surprised when people try methods you don't agree with. Because the alternative is doing nothing and letting fascists have control of the streets. Last time that happened, it didn't go so well. And yes, though it is not the most important aspect of anti-fascist organizing, it is still important and necessary to have good public perception. That's why I made this whole fucking video. I just happen to think that routinely slamming problematic Antifa protests without stressing the necessity of good anti-fascist organizing is a supremely bad way to do that. If you're worried about anti-fascist agitation making Nazis look good, then it's your job to be louder than the Nazis when they whine about it. When you add your voice to theirs in condemning anti-fascist organizing without making it clear that some sort of organized resistance to fascism is necessary, what you're doing is signal boosting Nazis. You're not being fair to them, you're just giving them what they want. Hey Felix. I started a Patreon in case you wanted to know what's up with my life. It has some pretty cool goals, if that's, something you're interested in. For $10 a month, I'll draw a little drawing of you in the credits. I was going to do it early, but my fucking Surface Pen ran out of batteries, so I can't. So I'll do it starting in the next video. But in the meantime, now that, this is kind of, there's a financial interest in this for me, could you please tell people to like and subscribe? See, I don't feel like you're paying attention to me, and I don't feel like you're taking me seriously.